Hello and welcome to Westfox and today's review of episode 5 of Star Trek Picard. We all have watched it. We're catching up on the series from when I was traveling, so we appreciate your patience on us being slightly behind here. I am joined by Shepard and Southhound today. And
it is not Southhound, it is Philippe Southhound. I am his French brother. I have come to speak to you on the intricacies of the French people.
And yeah, that's about that. So this episode is actually a relatively simple episode in the sense of the story that it is, but it definitely is an episode that creates a lot of questions and a lot of philosophy questions to the franchise itself as this keeps going. I think the opening note that for me is, if this show was in a vacuum, if this was its own thing, I don't think it'd be a bad show. I think there's certain characters that would be great on me a little bit, but I think overall it could be a good show. The problem is it's taking on the mantle and continuing the mantle of Star Trek with, you know, what's happened before, and it's not answering any questions to what's happened to the Federation of hundreds of years. What happened to these characters that have been around for, you know, years and decades? And so it's taking these characters in a whole new, and not even new direction. They're new characters, and with the names of the old characters, really. I think that's what makes a lot of our questions and criticism for the show come from that. There's a lot of like the philosophy of Star Trek. You know, we're gone from the optimistic future to the dystopian type future feel, which I think is, for me, a mistake. I feel like there's so much dystopian material out there these days that I don't really need to see more dystopian. I like to see some optimistic. I think it's where the Orville has done pretty well as kind of the spiritual sequel to Star Trek. And I think that has a lot more of that, you know, optimism, pushing forward, thinking ahead, versus this one, which kind of goes along the lines of narcissistic slightly and doesn't value the life that I think that original Star Trek did. It valued life a lot more. I don't think this show values life. I think it's a lot more this nihilistic take on reality. So the main plot here we have going is really, it's a pretty simple one. And it's Icheb is murdered by essentially crime lord, Brasilia. No, wait, how is it said?
Bajazel. That's
Bajazel.
It's ridiculous.
Bajazel about 13 years prior to this episode. So we have another flashback, which we'll get into later.
Bitch. Get used to it. You're like,
and now she has. So we find out she has Dr. Bruce Maddox, who is the one that created the two, essentially clone offspring of Data. And then she wants to give him to the Tal Shiar, but our group finds out about it, and they want to create a plan to trade instead of trade 7 for him instead. Obviously, it's a ruse. It's a heist episode with double cross and triple cross. That's one of the things I thought was kind of funny. Was in the sense the story is, you know, there's a lot of little things in it that we're going to hit here through the points, and you guys can add some stuff at the end here. We'll go through them, but I'm sure these will cover a lot of your guys' nitpicks as well. I know they cover a lot of Phillips. There's some interesting plot. I guess there's a couple things they add into it, and it's too bad that these things weren't allowed to. I guess it'll be one of my plot points as well. But I think the one thing that I've noticed in this show is it doesn't allow things to stew. So it shows at the beginning of this episode, it shows Dr. Bruce Maddox being kidnapped. And then that's the whole episode is him being kidnapped. And obviously spoilers and heaviness. And then he dies at the end of the episode. So you don't have this time to like build up like, oh, he's being captured for weeks. Instead of putting that maybe earlier in the series, you know, somewhere where he, you know, they could flashback. We got to find Bruce Maddox, and they show a scene of him being captured, or throw that scene in the middle of this episode versus another, you know, flashback. Because I think that would have added, you know, some more like actual mystery and actual tension to the character, kind of to get to know this guy over maybe more than one. Oh, here's the character in and done. There's a lot of in and done in this show, and a lot of setup that should have been spaced out differently in the show, at least for me.
Well, and I think this episode especially, with its again flashback beginning of Icheb being murdered. To your point, Joe, was since the whole rest of this episode then is a little bit of 7 of 9 having a revenge kick and wanting to take revenge on the person that, as you find out, that's the case. I know we mentioned it, Joel, last night after Philip dropped off on there, but you know that first part where she dies, Philip, or Icheb dies, and she goes, "My son." It was so weird because it's like Icheb and Seven have never had. There was never a maternal.
And that goes into my
relationship between
questions.
those two.
You're gonna we'll dig into that more here coming up because that's a big part of my questions.
My first note.
Okay, cool. We'll dig in that one deep then here coming up then because that's a big. I have a big bullet.
Because like I said, just because what like to your point though, Joe, because it's like you said, you don't get to stew on it. So then the decisions that Seven makes in this episode, it's like, it's kind of a weird decision to saying they're
I actually have more issues
but then it's
with
like
that,
I don't
that choice than just
there's so many
breathing or enhancement of the thing. The worst part about that scene is that we're talking about Star Trek 400 years in the future. His physical damage.
Well, we'll get you're jumping to our Phil. We'll get into that. Well, you're jumping farther ahead. I know. I know. You're excited.
And why is Icheb an ensign only? You're telling me after he got back from Voyager, he was only an ensign? This isn't Harry Kim. This isn't Harry Kim. Like I was sitting there going, man, Icheb would have been like a lieutenant commander when he got back from the Delta Quadrant.
Well, this is the same issue
Harry
I
Kim
have
would
with
still been sitting there going.
Seven is.
Okay, so let's continue on the main part,
She's
guys.
like one of the most brilliant people because of her connection with the Borg.
We'll get to that, Phil. Don't worry.
Yeah. It's the world building that I was talking about last
episode. We'll get to it.
We will get to it
because that's a huge
because
thing.
I am French, you could just walk all over me and you think I where's the white flag?
What? You're just going to hit me with your baguette.
You are correct.
I'm sorry, they have gone rogue. So this episode reveals that Agnes and Bruce had a relationship, which could have been revealed earlier. We'll go through these points pretty quickly. Raffi having a son, which ended up being to me a waste of time there. That was a 3 minutes, 44 seconds, and 21 frames of time that just didn't need to be added to this episode. I literally timed it because I was like,
count it all?
I did. Well, I pulled in Premiere.
It was the Cantabite within the Cantabite episode.
Yeah, it was unnecessary, and it didn't add anything to it.
At least
and
we
also,
understand why Raffi maybe just is a jerk to everyone because she's a jerk herself.
Well, and her son obviously is far worse of a jerk than she is because, she came to him kind of with the olive branch, and he's like, "So F you, Mom. Peace out."
Yeah.
And so I thought that was not a cool.
Yeah.
I don't think that was very cool to her, even though I don't like her character. I will say that actually that's some. I'm jumping ahead, so we're just skip that. Let's see. Yeah. Oh no, actually, I didn't jump ahead. I thought actually that the scene with her saying goodbye to Picard on the ship, I actually thought was well acted. I actually took a note of that when she was leaving and saying goodbye to Picard on the ship. I actually liked that scene. I actually thought they both did a really good job in that scene, and I wish there was more of that from her character. She was subtle. She was in the moment. She wasn't doing this whole like schizo thing that they keep having her do. Though later at the end of the episode, they kind of have her go back and she's like, "Leave me alone," when she gets kind of stowaway thing.
Well, it was the only time she wasn't chastising Picard.
Yeah, and it was just a nice, like I said,
entire show.
Yeah. It was a nice scene, and I wish there was more of those kind of scenes with the two. And I think that she would be a likable character. Unfortunately, those scenes have been. That was the only one so far.
Well, especially too, because you're supposed to feel that Picard and her have a decent relationship. She calls him JL. I mean, we made fun of it, but it's like the fact that she calls him JL means there's supposed to be a good relationship between the two of them, and you never see it because everything we've seen in the episodes, other than partially because you didn't even see the flashback the one time it do, because then she gets fired and she's like, "It's all your fault," so it begins it off. So it's like, again, you've never had a moment to. I've never seen that relationship the way that they're trying to play it, so it was nice to kind of, but at the same time, it's like
it was short. It was
I'm not
short-lived.
even sure what I'm caring about.
Yeah, it was short-lived, but I'm glad that it existed. The next thing we have is this ties into a couple things, so we won't go too deep into it till later. But the Agnes breakdown at the transporter, this just kind of things that something we'll talk on later. But it shows that the EMH, the emergency medical hologram, is monitoring all the people on the ship at all times. And he can turn himself on, which applies stuff later. So we'll get to that later. But that's just a note. Pin that. Put that a pin. And we'll get back to that.
Why are you touching on all my things? Keep your hands off my things.
Because there are a lot of good things. Seven going back to kill. I made a joke about it earlier, which was
good for her.
That I don't believe that she would need to go back to kill this person, because she would never have taken 13 years to find this person who's not hiding. That was a weird thing to me.
Oh, well, sure.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that. Yeah.
She'd
be dead already.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought there. I'm trying to think if I missed something here. Let's see if I missed a plot thing. Oh, yeah. Okay, go get that then.
Something popping up, Joel?
Put it away. Put it away. Thick.
Oh. Look at
the regaining of humanity conversation between her and Picard.
So stupid.
Was a scene that could have been good, but it didn't work. It just didn't work with the logic of those characters. Picard's had almost 30 years since he was assimilated. She was assimilated as a child, so her humanity is really relative to it, while his is very different for his experience for the Borg.
He was only Borg for like a week. So
right.
Which in the Borg world still a long time. Which in Borg world you're still assimilated, but
yeah, sure. I'm not saying it would suck,
he has
but his was very different.
His was able to go back to experience
he was
life
designed
before. Yeah, his was unique too. You're right. He was actually designed to be unique in his own way.
He wasn't just assimilated. He was designed to be interactive with the Federation.
Yeah,
and of course he had to look pretty. That's why they didn't pop his eyes out.
Yeah, well, they didn't want to ruin it for later. But so that part is one of those ones that it's a deeper dive into the kind of the theory of who Picard is. I don't think you can ever say you're healed from something traumatic like that, right? I think if you were to experience something like that, I don't think you could ever say, oh, I'm 100% back to normal. And I think that, again, the scene could have been something good, but we learned the scene is not even real on Seven's part because she's literally going, oh, I'm just saying it to make Picard feel good, which I felt takes away from the whole thing too.
Here, this is why I asked the question at that part. What exactly is the writer's definition of humanity? Because they have this, it's like, have you felt like you've got your humanity back? Well, what exactly does that mean? Does that mean that I think for myself, that I'm an individual, that I'm not looking for a collective mindset? Does that mean that I have values and principles that are different than everybody else, and sometimes I have to think on my own? What exactly do they mean by their humanity? It's not like when they came out of the collective, the ones who wouldn't find their humanity were the ones who are like, oh no, I need to get in a big group and act like Borg, and we have to think through things together and process things as a collective. Well, that's not what either one of them have ever been doing. They've been acting out on their, I mean, my goodness, he went to Starfleet and resigned. 7 of 9 went off on rebellion to remove yourself from the Federation to be a ranger. I mean, what is this so-called humanity? It's not like they're walking around systematically eliminating people and killing people because of some programming that the Borg had in them, and they're like rolling the die on statistically who they need to deal with or not deal with or program or whatever. I mean, what do they mean by your humanity? They're not walking around like drones. They're clearly individuals in everything they do.
And I think that was a huge part of it too.
I think they wanted to bring in that part for two reasons. Obviously, because I think we've said it before and other stuff, like Star Trek usually has that character who's trying to find their humanity as a part of it. And they were like, oh, well, we can pull Voyager's character. We'll pull 7 of 9 in, who did make mention a lot of trying to find her humanity. And let's give Picard in a moment there. And what gets me too is because, again, I think we said this, I would have loved to see some interesting stuff between 7 of 9 and Picard, because of them both being Borg, and then they give
I wish she was more than a cameo.
Scene.
I think more. Yes. Yeah, I wish. Again, it's unfortunate again that she's only a cameo in this series.
Especially when it's dealing with the Borg.
I thought the two of them on screen actually had a cool chemistry. You know, what's interesting is to me is that some of I'll get to it later, but I thought some of the characters they brought in, like his bodyguards from at the vineyard. I'm like, I wish those guys were there, and I wish 7 was with this group. I feel that would have been a strong group. But anyway, moving on. I think the line that she says, Picard still thinks there's a place in the galaxy for mercy, and I don't want to disillusion him. Somebody out there still needs a little hope. It was a weird line to me because it ties into the larger story of what happened in the Federation. Is really the Federation has no mercy out there anymore? Is that like? I don't understand. Like, is this not even the Federation? Like, if it was a Federation go full coup, and it will allude to that later at the end, the last scene. We won't talk about the last scene till the end. But that alludes to something about, is that even what does that even mean? Like, what is it going to do? But anyway, so we have this whole, again, it gets start getting its levels of, why does the Federation not make sense anymore?
Well, yeah. But even like you said, it's because it's a weird, nonsensical, like, ooh, mercy. It's like these people don't know what that means. What's merciful about this situation that's been created? We have someone who's engaging in hunting down people and specific people. So you could say, kind of an ethnogenic cleansing, attacking just to harvest their parts and their pieces. There's nothing to be merciful to. This isn't an issue of, I have you dead to rights in a court of law as a victim and saying, you know what, I will not press all of my actions against you. We're talking about a genocidal murderer who's using it to sell parts. I mean, mercy isn't even a part of the equation.
Yeah, it's very weird. So actually that goes into a thing later we'll talk about too. So I'm a little out of order because, we talk, things get out of order. It was cool seeing Seven be awesome. It was very nice to see her. I will say that
awesome? Was she being? Where was she being awesome? Are you talking about the last?
Where was she being
awesome?
Phaser
thing? Because that was
horrible. No, the scene was horrible. Like the visual effects on it really bad. I literally have a screenshot later. We'll talk about that. It was really bad. But I just think that like her as a character, she does such a good job as being Seven. Like even with her just on screen, I think she did it.
I love Seven, but I don't know. Yeah, I didn't feel as much of it, and admittedly, I don't know if this could be just maybe because of her age and like the tone of her voice, but I didn't feel like it had the same Seven accent.
Well,
I don't know if she really sounded the same as 709, but
I don't. Yeah, I thought she was
good.
I'm
not saying she had an accent, but
I thought she was really good. I thought that, like I said, I wish she was around for more of the show. They allowed her to develop.
Some
more
of that is just a syntax.
Picard. Yeah, and she could.
Yeah,
change,
well, like I said, and it could be
Mm-hmm.
age too, just like how her voice, that change in her voice on there. But it was just like there was a few moments I was like, I don't know if she sounded like she sounded more like she had a more Earth accent than I guess I felt like she did in Voyager.
She probably smoothed it out because she wasn't going for the super proper thing.
Sure, she wasn't Data again. And this is where I was going to say that stuff doesn't bother me. Of course, we all know that if you were on Earth, you're going to start to progress and things are going to change, right? You're not going to, when someone asks you a question, you won't say things like, I have my nutritional supplement here that I've gotten from the replicator and I'm going to recharge, kind of that Borg-y type
I guess,
ask, right?
I guess that's a fair point. I guess that's maybe what
fine.
I'm used to hearing is kind of that.
That's not my issue. It's actually the life choices that she's made and her personality. That's more my problem. I actually named my list the deconstruction of Seven because we're talking about a woman who was very scientific, very methodical, very logical. She was concise. She was candid. She didn't mince words necessarily. But this new person that we got is some wild rebel. And that was never in her character qualities ever. She was very formulated. She was very policy driven. But while she would make decisions that weren't necessarily part of protocol, it was because they were more efficient. It wasn't an issue of vigilante rebellionism. You know what I mean?
Right.
And not to mention, they turned her into what was legitimately a strong forward. I mean, I love the episode in Voyager when she's talking to Harry Kim, and Harry Kim's intimidated because she's like very direct and forward, and he's like, but their definition of a strong woman in this is a bitchy lesbian. I mean, that's what they qualify as a strong woman. She walks into a room, she says, "I'll take my whiskey and throw it back." I'm like, first of all, no one orders a whiskey like that. If you don't want anything in it, you say, "Neat." No one says, "I'll take a whiskey straight." And then she's like, "Bah," It's like, no. People don't say things like that.
I just call that shorthand.
If I would say that, are fake.
You can call it like story shorthand for like you said. I get what you're saying. We won't lay on that one too long because we'll hit on that more here coming up.
But that's what I hated. I think they just. I mean, apart from the whole homosexual intonations, apart from that, they actually just ruined her character and made her something else that she never.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say
she would have organically turned into.
No, I'd agree.
No, not at all.
Again, because
her implants look like crap.
Also, yeah. What also it makes it hard to describe that, Philip, on the sense of where these characters have gone, is because what's happened in the last 15 years also doesn't make sense. In the sense of what it is. So you've almost have, like I said, when you have these characters put in a situation that doesn't even make sense to the thing, it makes it harder to be like, well, they would never do that. Someone can say, oh, Seven would never do that. But I also would say, well, I don't think Egypt would ever be harvested for parts either in old Star Trek. So in this scene here.
Well, that's what I was going to say too. Really? A Starfleet officer disappears and the Federation just shrugs their shoulders?
Yeah, I don't think that would
Yeah,
happen.
because they don't care about
really?
anyone anymore, right?
I don't think that would
Right.
happen.
Hey, you know what? We've noticed a lot of Borg people are being consumed and taken away and disappearing, and even our own Starfleet officers. Wonder if we should do something about that.
And we'll get into
Nah,
that
it'll
too.
be fine.
We'll get into that too. So
Why?
this last little couple like notes, we'll get to that deeper. The Picard, the last scene is not my favorite. And then the other thing that I noticed is the artifact that is in Romulan space. So we went to a planet last episode where the Romulans live on like a planet inside of Federation space. But there's a governor, there was a senator, which we know the senators in Romulan government are like top tier people, right? They're like a senator in our, their legislatures. And so he's been hanging out on this Federation side planet, but he hasn't gone back to Romulan space because there's obviously still Romulan space being run. So there's not like we absorbed Romulan. So this is again the plot issues for me that are getting really weird is so there's Romulan space and there's Federation space, but we have Romulans in Federation space which in the story aren't doing well and hate us, but they're not going back to Romulan space where there's obviously stuff that can be done in Romulan space, and even leaders who would be the first ones to go back aren't going back, and then they're blaming Picard for not allowing them to go back, and I'm just going
Personally, blaming him personally.
Yeah.
So yeah, blame him personally. So that one to me right there is a big one. And then here this kind of I should have put this slide first, so apologies on that. Kind of some housekeeping things that's kind of tied into more. The Borg used to be scary. Like the Borg are one of the greatest sci-fi villains as out there, and
Absolutely.
in Voyager, and it goes into this harvesting thing. In Voyager, one's nanite. The doctor at some point says one Borg nanoprobe can literally devastate a world because it starts assimilating, building new, replicating. That's what it does. It just takes one.
It's like the
and it
flood.
starts. Yeah. And so you now have people willy-nilly ripping apart Borg on tables. And we know that even though Seven was no longer activated, she still could create a Borg because she had that transport accident with the Doctor's holomatrix and created a whole super advanced Borg. I think it was called, was he Hugh? That was the Hugh Borg,
Hugh.
right? Yeah, Hugh.
That was the Hugh Borg, yeah.
And it created a super like 26th century Borg and super advanced, and because the nanoprobes in our system are still active even though they're not currently active. Like they
adapted the technology from the 26th century technology that was in his emitter.
To me,
and that was part of my joke where I had for last episode when they took off their shoes and sliding through the Borg. I was like, you just get one of those nanites and you're a Borg.
Right? That doesn't mean
Point
so
that
weird.
out.
It's
Like, admittedly, that was my thought. I was like, I would not be taking off my shoes or anything in a Borg territory because one nanite, you a Borg.
yeah, and that's why the willy-nilly again with this whole like Borg black market. This Borg black market, all it takes is one mistake and you're assimilated. So that to me, like said, they're treating the Borg very much like a disabled entity. Like once they're turned off, they're just like, oh, they're good, and you're like, that's not really, in my opinion, what had been done in the past. And then you have this other part where we have the Ocean's 11 heist. This episode is the Ocean's 11 heist episode, which I thought was funny that Rick and Morty recently did the Rick and Morty episode about heists. Philip hasn't seen it because he doesn't watch the show. I think Krister saw it, but literally the show is making fun of double, triple, quadruple. I think in the show they actually up to like 500 double crosses in a row, essentially, making fun of that. And I feel like they didn't learn from that episode going, yeah, they're making a point about always.
Wait, are they making fun of us?
Right. Are you making fun of this storyline where there's always this person that double crossed? And they're like, oh, wait, we have a double cross. Oh, wait, we have two double cross. Oh, crap, we have three. Son of a bitch. Yeah, there's a little bit of that in it. We kind of hit on this earlier, which is the opening stories. They keep doing these these flashbacks, and just stop doing flashbacks. Just start weaving a better narrative. And then the last one was
they actually do some
nailed it,
writing.
though.
Yeah, and then the last part was
but Christopher nailed it. Every single time, right? It's these little vignettes, and that's all the story's about, except for one last thing that happens in 10 seconds. And to answer that question,
Sets up
Joel,
the
that you
next
had-
episode.
yes.
Well, but not only that, this episode merely existed to reveal one thing. The fact that 7 of 9 was involved and all this other stuff was meaningless. It could have been any other person, any other character, any other
Correct.
It could have been Riker. It could have been Geordi. It could have been anyone from from some other. It could have been Cisco. It wouldn't have mattered. It was all designed for the last 30 seconds. That's it. That was all they.
Yep. The last 30 seconds and revealing that where she's at, that she's at the other sisters on the Borg cube. That was the only thing that they revealed to the main thing, which we've already known for the entire show so far. Which again is the out of order. Which is which is the out of order parts where you're like, oh, maybe they should have left us out of in the dark a little longer than our main characters being in the dark 6 episodes. And then my last thing was, do I believe Seven might kill? And I'm like, well, yes, I could believe she can kill. However, I might have said this already, but I believe that the girl who killed Ichep would already have been dead if Seven wanted her dead. About
Completely
13,
agree.
12. Let's see, if it was 13 years, it'd been 12 years, 364 days prior. She would have been dead.
Exactly. It would have been done the day.
Yeah, I don't believe that she's had 13 years to do this. And I also, a shout out to the actor. I always say his name wrong, so I apologize. But to Manu Inturiam, I feel like they kind of did him dirty by not bringing him back as the actor.
Seriously,
he's still active as an actor. He's still active as an actor. He still does a lot of Star Trek stuff. He's done some little stuff with a lot of the cast that does like little self-done feature shorts and stuff. And I think that the fact that they didn't bring him back, they killed his character without bringing him back, I thought was just a really uncool thing to do. I feel like that's like kind of like, I don't even have a good example. Burning someone's house down when they're away from town or something, and you're like, oops. I don't know. It was really weird. So moving into question territory, I was trying to think of ways that you can break down this episode, and the best way I can think of it is ask questions, because really what I have is lots and lots of questions, and you go, so why is so here we're gonna go to some slides here. Let me pull that up. So let's see, slides. We'll jump ahead here. Here we go. So we're in the, again, we did this 2 weeks jump, right? Another 2 weeks, could just do a thing. So we're in this bar, and it's like a future bar, and essentially another Vegas thing. And I also hit that, which is like, what's sci-fi's current fixation with Vegas?
Seriously.
Like, Last Jedi did a whole thing on Vegas. Here's another Vegas. And it just feels like a cheap ripoff. Like, dude, go to Vegas, man. Like, I guarantee they have better looking bars than this. And my thought is, with all the holographic technology at their disposal, why would you not have the most amazing bar that, like, the ceiling is clouds, or it's raining all the time inside, but it never hits the ground, or there's like smoke, or
power, it's all about the power.
It's because Joel, they waste all their money on the pop-up ads that show up on your ship.
Yes, exactly. So I feel like that, as a set design, I get like there's budgets on a like external level. I understand there's budgets. But I also feel like they did the most boring bar in the entire cosmos. It's just a black room with some couple lights fixtured around it. I'm like, oh, you guys couldn't do something cool with the visual effects. Like I said, with holographic technology.
They spent $10 million an episode.
Yeah, I said I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all.
I know you said that, but I'm just going by what they said.
They're liars.
Well, that was all spent on Vup's prosthesis for this episode. Right. Vup. That's where all that money went to.
Then, like I said, they did. I felt like they did Manu dirty by not bringing him back. Why did the writers kill Icheb? That was a choice on their end to pull a character out. I think it's super uncool to pull a character out that's not, that just as we know is a legacy character, and then be like, we're going to kill you just to try to like do a gut punch to the fans. I just hate that. Like, I personally think that's a cheap trick.
It's the only way they could think. It's the only way they could think of bringing Seven around and making her a killer. They're like, that's the only. Yeah, it was. They're like, we want 709 to be a killer. How do we do that? Well, let's kill Egypt and make her do it. That's perfect.
And that's what goes back to my whole point about why I had my rant about the world building last time, because it's like, especially with this episode, the beginning, to say you pulled in Voyager characters for no reason other than the two reasons, because we know who Icheb is as any Star Trek fan, and personally for me, like Voyager's probably, I really actually enjoy Voyager a lot, especially after going back and rewatching it.
I agree. It's held up pretty good. Like, some of the visual effects are bad, but overall it's held up pretty good.
Oh yeah, some stuff, and then warp factor 11 is horrible.
Oh yeah.
That's still become a lizard and have sex with your captain.
I will say, I think that still is probably the worst episode ever. I think even Picard is not as bad as that episode. That is truly one of the worst episodes.
That's
It
true.
is like top one of one most cringy episodes. And
But
they're like,
exactly, but
okay,
they brought in
pretend like
they
never
brought
did
in
that again.
Ichep for the fans, because the fans would know who he was, and then we had the shocking moment saying, oh, "You killed him," and then obviously Seven comes in, we go, "Oh," but it's like, no, screw you. You just pulled the name, you pulled it, and like Philip said, you just did it so now Seven has a reason to be a raging, pissed off ranger from the north.
So
Yeah, and
that goes into why did Seven call him son? Because if anything, it'd be brother.
Yeah.
Again, they were too close in age, too close in the space. They never had a mother-son relationship in Voyager, and once they got to the Federation, it would only become more of a brotherly, sisterly relationship in a positive way. If
or
anything.
mentor.
Like-
if anything, I would only see Seven as a mentor to each
Sensei.
or like
to be, I said this once, but let's be honest. They both suffered being assimilated. You're telling me that E-Chip, after spending a couple years with her on the ship, and then coming into the Federation territory and all this stuff, that he wouldn't be like in to 7 of 9? They weren't that big. There wasn't that big of an age difference between. I mean,
Yeah,
I
but
guess you could argue
technically
yes,
Voyager,
because
but
it
but
doesn't
technically
matter.
Voyager
She's
fell
just-
up.
she's been preserved throughout that time period of being in the Borg and stuff like that. I'm sorry. More likely they have an attempted intimate relationship, not a.
Right.
I mean,
I'd
she
agree.
wasn't
I'd
that
say
old.
the
if they
only
were to
reason
do-
the only reason I would disagree with that, Philip, is
But
because is 7 and 9 already had a relationship in Voyager. It was Chakotay, and that was the point. So,
and that I think that was
which
but
again,
we
where the
just
hell
said it.
Chakotay?
Again, we just. Well, see, that's my point, though. They already got rid of him because they wanted her to be different, and so I'm just saying, if any relationship between the two would have been unique, other than just friends, mother
Them actually
son,
having
it
a
would not have
more
been.
intimate relationship would actually kind of make sense because of shared experience and what
Especially
they've gone through.
with the angst and what she does. And I find the scene insulting because, I'll be done with this part of it. We're talking about the Federation, and I kind of already brought this up. Having seen how injured E-Chip was, or the lack of his injury, there was absolutely no reason to kill him.
Yeah, no, it's my question. You'll see
it's
it here.
really weird.
You see my question.
I
Why
got
does
torn
7?
out. That sucks. He looks wounded in his side. Yeah, I agree. But what he wasn't was completely
Well,
maimed.
I don't know.
It wasn't
His chest wound looked.
Hey.
Well, it was hard to see because of the blood.
So?
I mean, they did it such
Well,
a
not only
dark
that,
scene, so I don't even know what the damage
we've
is.
seen
You can't tell.
we've seen massive surgeries completely healed up.
Yeah,
And they're in a medical room.
It was my
I get it's a
question too,
dissection
Phil.
bay, but
It
there was
a
no
question.
reason why she couldn't have brought him back and
I
it
agree,
just
Philip.
saved him. He didn't need to
Philip.
be killed.
Yeah, I agree, Philip. That was a question in my notes, which was, why did 7 have to mercy kill him? Was there no way to save him with the advanced medical tech we've seen in Star Trek? Great. Star Trek's done some stuff that we've seen in the past that is, super,
they kept Neelix alive with holographic lungs.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like the fact that, yeah, no, it's true. So, correct.
Like, come on.
So moving on to questions. Why was Bjayzl still there after 7 beams out the first time? So
That was
Seven
my
beams,
thought. Wouldn't you be running? Wouldn't you be
7
out
beams
the,
out.
like the hell out there?
7 beams out with the group, and she hangs out there and goes, "Oh, got it." And you're just like, to die, and you're like, "Well, you're obviously not the smartest person." Like, again, how did 7 not find this person before?
Exactly.
Why is
and when she know, like when Bjayzl know that 7 and 9 didn't leave. But
Well,
isn't
regardless.
that what it is?
No, that's what it is. It's just the worst name
That's what I'm
ever.
saying. But I'm saying like she says she knows 7 and 9 so well, she would have known 7 and 9 was coming back.
Yeah,
soon.
exactly.
Instead, she's like, "Let me put my head against the table and waiter, margarita." Oh, you're back? Don't kill me.
So in this episode, they imply that her and Bjayzl, 7 and 9 Bjayzl, had some kind of dating relationship of some sort. And I wasn't sure if that, again, I put it into 2 questions. I wasn't sure if that was a writing stat. Obviously there's it's the SJW
It's the
political
new
type
diversity.
stuff, type thing, or is it like, in a more thoughtful writing, it'd be like a jab, being like, like the time we hooked up, to somebody just to piss him off, right? Like kind of a jab at somebody.
Sure.
But I also I have a question to people and go, why is it every why is every woman now a lesbian character or some kind of thing? And like, do women find that offensive, like respective or cool to them? As like, obviously we're all guys watching the show, but I do wonder from like a woman's perspective if when they're watching that and they go, really? Oh, look at an attractive female character who's strong and does her own thing. Oh, she obviously has to be a lesbian now. I wonder if that gets old, because I figure
Especially
it would get
because
old.
that doesn't translate in real life.
Not generally. So why can't?
Not at all.
I was asking, why can't Larson's the Bond be there to protect them? They're like, we need to have a protector who's really strong, and they go back and pick a guy up off the planet who hasn't had enough dialogue in the show yet for me to dislike him or like him. He has a couple of funny lines.
His dialogue in this episode is horrible, because now he's like, I don't even know who he is, because it's like before he was kind of like moody, and now this one he's like,
I thought he was pretty funny.
oh, everyone's acting like
funny.
someone except me.
Yeah.
Who am I supposed to
I thought it was pretty
act
funny.
like?
Wait,
What am I supposed to do with my hands?
Still acting? What am I supposed to do with my
I thought it was fun.
Well, in fairness, he was surrounded by this. Oh, this is 7 of 9. I am here for Maddox. Will you take this on? And he's like, oh, is everyone having a stroke? And then all of a sudden, he's got his ridiculous accent. Oh, yes, the fromage in here with the drink. And then he looks over. He's like, wait a minute. Are you triple crossing me, 7? And
right.
This guy has had no interaction with
I love that too.
idiocy
Picard's
or
like this. Picard pulls his thing off. Picard pulls his eye patch off, and he's like, I don't know what's happening here.
Are you lying to me? Yeah, and he's like, I can imagine, because he's been surrounded by Romulans with complete candor, and now he's like,
this is a disguise.
What's going on?
This is a disguise. This is disguise. You can't see my face. See this? You can't see my face. Putting an eye patch on a bald guy who looks like freaking Picard is not a disguise.
Yeah.
I know who he looks like.
I was gonna say,
what's even worse?
Like, you're the famous Picard. I'm like, if he's so famous, why wouldn't you have recognized it when he came in?
That's my point.
And then, the extra part of that, even beyond that, is before she knows he's Picard, when Seven kind of makes his comment, if you were Picard's character and you hear that information, would you do a quick once over and go and look surprised by that when you're still trying to play the part? Because he looks over at Seven and already gives the like, wait a minute, there's more going on here than I know. And it's like, Picard, you're still trying to play that you don't know what's going on, and that lady shouldn't go, well, why is this guy now giving a weird second glance to him? So even in that sense, it's like, way to not stay in character. Because you wouldn't just look over like he does, like he does in that scene when she finally says it. Because he gives this like weird, it's all for the camera view.
Well,
and to have the shot, but it's like, that doesn't make sense.
Since I was actually the one who was playing Picard's double in that scene, let me explain to you what I was thinking.
Okay. Gotcha. Please do.
What I was doing was imagining.
Wait, hold on. Let me get my drink together. With two umbrellas.
two umbrellas. Stupid.
Because that's like, what makes it pimp.
Is that flamboyant enough? A second umbrella. Nailed it. No, see what I was actually trying to.
That'll be 5 cents, sir.
I
didn't think there was money here.
I was trying to give the audience's reaction a mix. It was like, Sacre bleu, you and Bajazel here. Well, sharing the bed together, and then I was trying to show like
devil's
tango. I was trying to think about it and be bewildered and in awe at the same time. I'm like, is this not so bad? May I see what you guys were doing?
If that would have been the case, all he should have said is he should have just looked at him and went, Bouge moi. Like, or something, like, give something else, you know?
Sacre bleu. So, other questions.
You do not like the baguette? This is unexpected.
Yes.
So I have moving on. I have the croissant. It's fluffier.
So the other question we have, these Rangers, they bring these Rangers in, and I go, are they like the ex-Maquis? Is this like a version of the Maquis now? Like. So why they just say they're Maquis if they're just the Maquis?
So maybe Chakotay is around. We'll just find him later.
Right? And then on our like kind of last point in the questions here, which is why does Dr. Agnes Jurati know so little? She doesn't know alien races. She doesn't know how to use transporters, and she's not used to space travel. And I'm going,
but apparently she helped make Dodge and Soji.
Supposedly. Supposedly,
That's
she's
what
involved,
was
but she didn't know.
high
mentioned,
neurotic,
so-
But she didn't know. But she
High-
didn't know there was two
High
of them.
neurotic people can be very competent in one field, and then be completely incompetent in others. But again, it's in juxtaposition to the gal who laughed at Picard and like ha 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 ha, like clearly had personality. The gal who came in and shot a Romulan in a room, and all of a sudden she can't accomplish the simplest of tasks. It's like, all I want you to do is put 3 fingers on a board and lift it up and back down again. Can you handle
So Christopher, I'm gonna. So we're gonna.
It's not working, Captain.
It's not.
Transporter's broken, like usual.
Right.
So we're gonna show you something,
I know,
Christopher.
Scotty.
We're gonna pull.
All right, what are you
scene
gonna
up
show
here.
me?
We're gonna show you something here. So, oops, let me go back.
Oh
to this.
yes.
We're gonna show you a clip here. Here's our characters from this episode. I think
Before we
we've
did this,
talked
do
about
we want to
everybody.
bring up the your comment on the? Oh, I guess this is going to be the set for. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So we have our inverter scene, which was, to me, not great. But I'm also curious on something. So you're gonna see this here. I'm gonna pull this
How
up
do you
now.
think you're going to get away with that? I mean, literally being inside the ship is the equivalent of being inside Big Brother. Everything, like as you pointed out. Oh, did you want me?
The EMH is following everyone.
Well, he's just following everybody.
Well,
So here's the problem with this.
Following
scene
everyone
here.
has information. The ship knows what's going on.
Well, here, right,
it
ready?
activates itself. She deactivates it, and the ship doesn't have a protocol. And be like, okay, bitch, you can't just kill people.
Right. Well, the ship
know,
scans her in this scene here.
Or
He
at least I'm
scans her.
assuming next episode they should know then already, because when he gets turned back on, he's going to go, hey, by the way, there was something going on and she turned me off, and then he was dead afterward.
Correct.
But that's
So
not
here we
going to be
go.
with the case. She's going to somehow she's going to now be able to, she has now corrupted that EMH. I'm betting you this next episode.
Oh, they'll
she's
find a way.
corrupted the
Yeah,
EMH.
but-
Ready, Christopher?
Yeah, they'll do something stupid. But let Joel.
Ugly
Joel, I thought you were
crying
going to show the
101.
transport scene first.
Ready, Christopher?
Yeah,
They're going
I'm
to show the
ready.
transport scene first.
No, this one. Which one do you think I'm gonna show?
Well, you'd made. I was making.
Just show the one you're going to
we were talking
show me,
pre-
and then let's go on.
All right.
And I know what you're thinking. He's not getting a reach around from the Romulan chick. I know what you're thinking, but it's not true.
Ready? Hold on. So that was the part. Here we go. So he just died. She just killed him.
Right.
She's reacting.
Right.
And she's over it.
Whew, that was a good cathartic cry. That's all I needed. Just a quick sad book. Well, anyway, continuing on.
you find
where
out
am I
that-
going to
you find
dispose
out
of
they-
this meat packet?
Well, see, you find out they have a relationship, just so I guess that cry somewhat makes sense.
No, but it doesn't make. Here's where I'm
That's
like,
not-
wait. Does that look like a cry of someone who just finished crying, or a cry of someone who's finished forcing out a cry or something? Again, that's why I'm like, oh, maybe she is not. She's being reprogrammed or something. Again, she has this whole line where she's like, you don't know what I've seen. I wish I could share you. I'm like, well, share it with me. Share it with them.
Yeah, I know.
You have all
I
this
know.
secret information. This whole scene here is nothing but secret information. So what was the other scene, Philip, you were talking about that you thought I didn't show?
Oh, you were talking about because you were talking about the programming thing, and you're like, see, she had that issue in the transporter room, and you're like, oh, the EMH must have been noticing something going on.
Yeah,
and maybe she was
my
being
problem is
programmed,
that
and I just
yeah, I didn't.
and I,
I don't.
just
I
said
think
that.
Sorry, we keep on. The EMH seems like it would she shouldn't be able to override a ship's EMH, like that, especially
No,
if the
she's
life or
trying to
death
murder
thing.
someone.
You're murdering someone. The EMH should not be turned on. The doctor would come back on. We see this EMH interface turn himself off and on, be constantly scanning people. The fact that alarm bells didn't go crazy in the ship going, oh, she's killing somebody, and go, like, the ship should have alarms going and then something should have happened. But the fact that didn't happen
And just
to
covering
me,
that up would be a nightmare. I mean, if we think about metadata now and machine learning and what goes on just now from a simple internet search. Do you realize what you would have to erase from the ship?
And this guy should have
so
pretty
that
high security
incident
on
would
his ship.
never be noticed.
Well, this guy's a
Well, yeah, this
smuggler,
guy should
right? So he
have-
should pretty have
yeah.
high security. He shouldn't be. He's not an idiot. He was an ex-Starfleet officer who has high security on his ship because he's carrying people who are questionable in nature. So you would think he would have
Seriously.
he'd have high security for those reasons. So again, I haven't seen the next episode yet, so we'll see what the end result of that is here coming pretty soon.
Right.
But I feel
But I was
like
just
it was not a good ending for this episode.
No,
was horrible.
And what I was going to finish on your conversation in the transporter room was that you felt this was the beginning of her being reprogrammed. Because she's like starting to get worked up, and the EMH was something. And I was like, oh, I just assumed that she was getting worked up because the possibility of Maddox being put on the ship was becoming more and more likely,
possible,
and that she would have to then kill him, which is she probably would have preferred to avoid that, aka him dying on his own or them never being able to retrieve him.
Right.
And then once that happened, it was like, okay, I have to do this for whatever dumb reason they're going to try to expose later.
Right.
Well, because CSI Miami told her something really important. So.
Well, that's the thing that they're getting into. This really weird. Again, like, what's the word?
I have a major question for you, for both of you. What the hell is going on in this show? What's the point? What's the plot line? Where is this going? We are now episode 5 out of. Did we say there's 11 now? Is there 10, 11?
Well, clearly what they want, where they want to take us, has nothing to do with season 1. It's going to be season 2. That's what they have no storyline other than to take us to season 2. That's what this
there's a mystery,
about.
Right? So the real, at this point, the real mystery is there's obviously some cabal. We'll call it the cabal, right, between the Federation and the Romulans, and they're somehow competing over something, or something is threatening them from a more existential. From what they're showing, this whole like it's the end of times. There's like this existential external threat, right? And the problem with that is, I don't think that we're seeing that very well, and you're not getting the. Again, we're going to end up on the. Sorry, I was trying to find an interesting shot to put on this. We're not getting anything of value information-wise, right? Again, we're in a universe we know, and so we're getting this like, oh, there's the Federation is somehow being controlled possibly from an external group, and we do see that they have a bunch of random groups inside the Federation happening, right? We have, that could be where it came from. So, now here's the question that'll be really weird. So this is an early thought. Ready? So she said they showed her something, right? I was assuming that she's talking about something way before she met any of this group, but she did have.
It was after her.
No, it was with Commander O.
Commander O. But Commander O had a whole different thing going on from the other Romulan girl.
I know, and that's because she's probably a 4th or 5th secret society that we haven't named yet.
I still think they're all in the same group. I don't think she's a Vulcan. I think she's a Romulan.
Well, yeah,
I think they're in the same cabal together. And what she did was she recognized that Agnes had an in that she wants. And then it was like, okay, so I want you to be on my team.
Well, here's the question then.
And she's like, I'm not going to do that. Here, let me show you what Picard's getting involved in by trying to find this chick. And then whatever this mind-blowing mystery that'll make you poop your shorts and blow your brain. And she's like, okay, what do you need me to do? That's what I mean, it's base, but that's what they're doing. It's super
So Christopher
basic.
and Philip. So question. What would you guys...
Philippe
and Cristobal. What would you expect? We can throw our little We'll throw our prediction hats on. Bust out our crystal balls here for the to the fans. What would you expect the mystery to be? Where do you think they're going with this? Like, I mean, what's your quick pitch? What's your quick pitch? I know it's a random question. I just thought of it now. But what's your quick pitch on what the secret is? I have a feeling it'll be stupid. Just to put my part out there, just the initial part of it.
Completely.
I have a feeling that it's a waste of time, unfortunately, and that's what sucks. Is like, man, it really would be cool if it's something like, oh my gosh, I wasn't expecting that.
I'm still going with my first. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm still going with my first pitch that I said forever ago. The Romulans created the Borg.
Okay. So you think the Romulans created the Borg? Okay. I hate it,
and I think that's
it.
What I super hate it, but I think that's what the whole vendetta is. They created the Borg. They were somewhere else, either they might even say the Romulans used to be in the Delta Quadrant for all I know, and then they recreated themselves in the Beta Quadrant or something really dumb. But I think there are super hardcore animus is that they created the Destroyers, and that's why it's in their little mythos, and they've been trying to prohibit that from the beginning of making that issue. That's what I think.
Okay.
That's what I think they're going to reveal.
Got it. What about you, Christopher?
Colgate toothpaste.
I have a joking answer. I think this is going to go the way of Mass Effect. And at the end of this, there's going to be 3 different choices. All of them suck. Either humanity and Zinth get together, humanity leaves, or Zinth leave. Yeah.
Well, no, it's worse. That game, that's the worst game ever. They're like, okay, everything you've ever done is meaningless.
Does not matter
right
when
here
you make
at the end
those
of the
final
game. And you're like, and then it's like, oh, and some person's telling them this story 2,000 years later.
I know. It's horrible. It's bad.
Bullcrap ending.
I'm really trying to think of where I mean, I kind of, there's a part of me that I think I have to agree with Philip that I think that might be. At the same point, I'm just like, what's the data dodge part? Unless that
again, it's hard. I don't know the answer either.
Or are we going off of the point that maybe the Borg were able to adapt because of learning about data?
I could see something more like this. Think of this: that the synthetic life was actual real life before organic life.
Oh, that'd be even worse than my idea. That's even dumber.
But you know what I'm saying?
Horrible.
Like I'm talking though. But you think about it. If you're saying that, if it's something that would terrify somebody, if you're almost resurrecting a race of synthetics, that in this, call it synthetics, the android, non-organic life, and you're accidentally resurrecting a race that somehow the Borg are tied into as well. The Borg could have been like the hybrid between the 2 races at some point inside of it. And you have the original life in the galaxy, and you're resurrecting it, and you're like, no, because they'll wipe out the galaxy and destroy all organic life throughout it, which is counter to Star Trek lore.
If they do that, then they're literally doing Mass Effect. I mean, if they do that, they're
ripping off other things too. So I never played Mass Effect, so I don't know that gun, so I don't even know that to pull it from. But it could be a combination of that mixed with a little bit of Halo, where you have like the founders, the Forerunners, so they could be like, the Forerunners are actually like an android race, that the leftovers are the Borg. That's the actual origin of the Borg, and they got messed up through time. That's why they started assimilating everything they weren't supposed to. Blah blah blah. I could see something like that. That'd be my like. I think Phillips is pretty good. Actually, your guess, Philip, is pretty strong. About
especially with what
the Romulan thing
he says at the very end before he gets killed by Agnes, because he makes this weirdo comment. First, he talks about that he worked with Dr. Soon, who made data.
Right.
And then, so it's like, okay, so he's learning at the feet of the master, whatever. And then he says that when he created both Dodge and Soji, and he has that gay line of perfectly imperfect, I'm like, is that he says he intentionally sent them A, to the cube, and B, to Earth.
Correct.
To help him find something. Now, I thought that was really funny because I was like, Dodge was just boning some random dude on the planet, hanging out and going to the Daystrom Institute. What exactly was she looking for and knowledgeable about? Zero. Nothing. The one currently on the Borg cube is also just as ignorant. So I'm trying to figure out what exactly he was trying to collect from them, seeing as they have no idea what their mission is.
I would call it the subtle, like, because he says they're activated. So it seems like they have like maybe a sub-level protocol that's running where it's like they're not consciously aware of their goals, but they're like, her goal is to go to the Daystrom Institute. Yeah.
Right. And they kind of have revealed that for Soji, who's on the cube, because she's starting to have information that shouldn't have been accessible to her.
Right.
Which is also weird, because if it's not accessible, that means that the Federation, or at least Dr. Maddox, must have had access to the Borg cube information to have that put inside of her. But how is that possible?
I would say I think that's a plot hole, Phil, that there's so many other plot holes that's so minor to me in that one. Well, it's a it's a good note, but
you bring up a thought, Philip. Because I also said something, because I know I said it earlier that they're saying that somehow Agnes was kind of a part of the creation of them, but like you said, she didn't know there was twins. But the way he also said it, Maddox said it, because I'm trying to remember.
Well, she was also surprised that they were girls. She was surprised they were
'cause
girls
Well,
too.
but because
She's like,
he said he got something from her though. From Agnes, it's like he's like, and I'll have to actually go back and remember what he said because it wasn't
her genes.
Because it wasn't necessary. It almost didn't sound like he was saying that she didn't help him create it, but it was like there was a part of his creation of Daj and Soji that he took from Agnes.
I didn't
And
catch
She
that.
was there at the Cybernet at the Synthetic Institute.
yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
But she
yeah.
didn't seem like she knew. She seemed like she didn't
And
know
here's
those
just,
two,
here's
though.
just a thought. Here's just a thought though. What if Agnes herself is somewhat synthetic?
I was thinking that, actually. I was thinking that.
That is one thought that I have. Is she actually might be partially synthetic, and that would make sense of why she's weird. Like just kind of she's not fully
why isn't she
emotionally.
Well, it would explain why she had such a weird reaction to stuff. There was a side of me that was thinking that. Though,
Like I
again,
said, I'll have to rewatch that, see what he says, and see what his wording was, because it's like he didn't say you helped me make it. He was like, I got something from you. Is almost
So
like,
what?
it's
He
kinda
Again-
makes he
the
makes
lyric.
her, and then he
Again, the problem with that,
has her
Christopher,
help him
is
make
that-
other ones, even though he's never done it before.
well, here's
And
the
acts
problem.
like he hasn't done
I'll
it
say,
before.
the Federation scanners
like I said,
suck
I don't
now,
know.
obviously. Because if
Yeah.
that is the fact that they haven't figured that out, because if you're I get you might be able to hide a scanner for once, but if you're running yourself through transporters and you're having to essentially take apart things, that's the reason they can disable weapons while they're transported onto a ship, is because it goes, oh, inside of you is a weapon on your phaser, and so if someone's designed something that they could actually be, let's say, like even the girls that they're robotic internally, and the Starfleet transporters
Yeah, but
slash
see, they're
medical
not.
system
That's the argument they're
I
trying
mean-
to make.
But I
That's
mean,
the
clearly
argument
they
they're
have to
trying
because
that they're all
Daj
flesh and
and
blood.
Soji have been around, but Daj and Soji have probably transported themselves.
I'm just saying that
we know
it
they
just-
have numerous times. Dodge did when she was going
Yeah.
back and forth in the first episode.
Dodge did,
What I'm
exactly.
saying is
So it's
that
like, so they
they've been-
clearly haven't. So
they've been trying to say that they are physically flesh. That's what the whole first episode was about.
Yeah, they were saying their brains were the
Episode
only thing that
was
wasn't.
being
But again, it's going down the whole road. But anyway, so I guess that wraps up this episode, though. I don't think there's anything else. Do you have any other comments, guys?
No, I don't think so. Like I said, I think the biggest it was. I really didn't like this episode. Everything about it was awkward. I think the whole dressing up like pimps, as you can tell, audience, this is why we are to the nines for doing what we're doing on there to kind of make fun of what they were
except
doing.
for Southhound over there, who has gone full.
Southhound over there. He just
mental
picked
hospital.
What he could figure out, and I think he might have frozen there, Joel.
Oh, that's too bad. Well, we'll let him wrap out later.
But yeah, that's I'd say my final scenes all together. Yeah, I didn't care for this episode. Again, it's another flashback episode. There really was no character development other than, oh look, we finally found Bruce Maddox and he's dead.
Right, I know that's how I felt too.
And which was just really frustrating to me. And then again, one more time, those pop-ups,
Yeah.
are so dumb.
Oh,
that was the worst.
Philip knows this one, so I'll just tell you. You asked about the pop-ups. It does have a line in this thing. So let me see if I can pull it up really fast here. Here we go. Pull it up really fast here. And you'll hear this line. And it's the only I still think it's stupid. But ready? You have to listen. Was it not playing audio to you? Oh, here
I
we go.
don't hear any audio.
Here we go. Ready?
Yeah.
You hear it said?
Did it say transfer of
Con.
what?
So I think
Transfer of
essentially
con.
Phil's back. So in this scene, I think the reason that pop-ups happen, I think it's a bad reason because I think it's stupid. I'd be so pissed off if I was at a ship and I had pop-ups. But I think that it says a transfer of con, and that's when they start popping up. So my assumption is that the way they're working around the idea that like, oh, how'd this happen is, oh, the moment you get to docking bay, it transfers your con over. That is how you're able to get these pop-ups. I still think they're silly,
I think that's stupid.
and they still irritate the crap out of me. But I think that's how
And
they
you're
get
wasting time. I mean, they wasted time on that. I mean,
Well, so much for advancement of humanity.
right.
And
Well,
yeah.
and
I mean,
people in the
come on. You want to
Federation.
advance humanity? I want pop-up blocker.
I did also notice too
Yeah,
that the
seriously.
one thing that I'll say it's weird with how good holographic technology is in the sense of we know
Oh, it's
how...
a red version of Chell. I didn't even realize. It's a red
Oh,
bowling.
you didn't notice that?
That's
No, I didn't realize that.
That's why he's an engineer. That's
I did laugh that I did laugh that Elron Jr. Didn't get one because he didn't have a search history.
I didn't get one
Because he didn't have a browser history.
He has no search history. That's exactly. It was hysterical.
So that part was
it's
actually
funny,
kinda
but then you sit there and you go, here's the problem for a lot of sometimes you laugh at certain parts and you go, oh right, I'm watching a Star Trek episode, and well, what? Like again, because it's like this whole scene, Doctor Who, total Doctor Who, and then when they went into the thing, and then when they went into the casino, Doctor Who, just. It's nothing
funny.
else but Doctor Who, and it's like ah. Now I will mention there was one other moment that, admittedly, even though right after it it's horrible, what they're doing. I somewhat do appreciate that they do play a version of the Voyager theme song when 709 does transport back.
Yes, I noticed that, and I actually forgot to mention that because I did notice that, and I actually hated that since that she goes to kill people after.
I know exactly. That was my because I was like because it's like I already hated the TNG time one before.
Oh, but she's just going to go kill this girl. I'm like, which again, we talked already, but yeah, I did catch that. Good catch.
I have two things. First of all, I'm just saying, they stole a line from Halo because she literally says, "I thought I would shoot my way out." I was like, how dare you invoke John 117? The audacity of you. That's like one of those best lines. She's like, so you have a plan? He goes, thought I'd try shooting my way out. Mix things up a bit. It's super funny. And I'm like, how dare you say that? It was cool to see her kill her because that girl needed to die. And I don't care what people say. People are like, oh my God, I can't believe she killed someone in cold blood. Yeah, well, get over it. It needed to happen.
Yeah, she deserved it for what she was doing.
You killed that mass murderer in cold blood.
I know. Seriously, it's like whatever.
I think anyone who has a problem with that, Phil, I think anyone who has a problem with that should watch your video on death.
Yeah. Why? Thank you.
A little plug there. You're welcome. You're very welcome.
Plugged.
My last issue is that the fact that the Federation know that the Romulans have a Borg cube in their space and are totally cool with it.
Agreed.
I don't know why they think that'd be okay. And they're
Speaking
like, oh,
of-
you want to play with fire? Sure, we're cool with it.
Right. Agreed. Speaking of pop-up ads and pop-up comments, please like and subscribe. And we need to get Philip that. We need Christopher as a like and subscribe button pop-up. They can pop up occasionally when we're just to like tease people with. So Christopher, that's what your goal is. Make a pop-up ad with like and subscribe. So thank you everyone for joining us on today's video.
Yes. Go see the Trigun commentary.
Yeah. Check out the reviews. We got episode 6 just came out yesterday. We're reviewing that sooner than later this time. So we'll be back on track. So thank you for joining us one more time. Please, again, like and subscribe. And have an excellent day. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for allowing Jean-Claude Philippe to be here with Southampton. Thank you.
Be here with the Southampton.
Bon voyage.
The Shepherd.